Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cara Stobart. I am the County Officer for the Devon Association of Local Councils, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all today to our Connect event. I'm glad to see so many of you here, and there's more people piling into the waiting room as I'm talking, so that's wonderful. It's great to see so many of you here, councillors and officers alike, all who are interested in understanding and utilising self-help highway schemes and building stronger working relationships with Devon County Council's highways team. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, Connect events are a really important part of how DOWC supports its member councils. These sessions are all about connecting you to information, to key stakeholders and to valuable resources. But more than that, they're about strengthening the wider network of councils across Devon, helping you to work more effectively with your communities and with other agencies. Today's event is the second in a series of highways themed events, an area that DOWC has chosen to prioritise based on feedback from our membership. And we recognise how highway services are crucial to the day-to-day quality of life in our communities. We also know that Devon County Council faces significant challenges and financial pressures in trying to deliver these essential services across our extensive highways network. And for those of you who joined us last time will know just how big that highways network is. And unfortunately, the reality of those challenges is that sometimes minor works can take longer to resolve than any of us would normally like to see, which impacts our communities. And that's why today is so important and so timely to talk about self-help highways initiatives. So we're going to be delving into 4 dynamic initiatives designed to empower your councils to take on a much more proactive role in managing and maintaining your local highways. The first one is the Road Warden Scheme, a truly game-changing initiative which allows town and parish councils to undertake minor works, ensuring that essential tasks are completed swiftly and efficiently. And did you also know that there is funding available to help you to acquire tools and equipment to support this as well? And we will be looking forward to sharing those details with you. We'll also be sharing details of the role that you could be playing in the winter months through the Snow Warden Scheme, which highlights how dedicated volunteers can play a crucial role in maintaining safer travel conditions during challenging winter weather. Next up, we'll have the self-funded delivery scheme. This is quite new on the blocks, this encourages communities to collaborate on infrastructure improvements. And it's a powerful example of how we can achieve much more when we work together as authorities. And finally, we'll also be discussing the Parish Paths Partnership, an initiative that fosters a greater sense of ownership and stewardship over our local pathways, helping us to enhance connectivity within our neighbourhoods. So all of these initiatives represent opportunities for councils interested in stepping up as a proactive partner in highways management. And we're delighted to be hosting this event with our colleagues at the Devon County Council Highways team. There's quite a few of them here today, and we'll be introducing them all to you in a moment. And I encourage all participants to engage fully, ask questions, share your experiences, and think about how these schemes might benefit you and your communities. I also want to highlight at this point that we're not going to be able to discuss really local highways matters here today. We will be providing opportunities through breakout rooms for you to participate in some discussion, and we will be providing a feedback form at the end of the event to enable you to make any additional comments, ask further questions. And as with our previous event, we will and are committed to answering all of your questions, and we'll get responses back to you as soon as practically possible. May I remind all participants at this point to always treat each other with civility and respect. Please respect our speakers when they're talking and direct all of your questions into either the chat function or to use the raise hand feature, and we'll try to take some questions at the end of the presentation, and I'll invite you each in turn to speak. Until that point, please can I ask you to keep your microphones off? It really helps to prevent background noise and disruptions. This event is being recorded, and links will be shared with our member councils as soon as they're available to us, hopefully within the next few days. At this point, I just really want to say thank you so much for joining us today, for your continued commitment to your roles and your continued dedication to your communities, and for your willingness to explore new ways of working collaboratively and in partnership with the Highways team. So I think that's enough from me at this point. Let's get started. Over to you, Ian.
Okay, thanks very much. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ian James. I'm the Highways and Traffic Management Group Manager for Devon County Council. So thank you, Cara, for welcoming us along to the second Highways Connect event, and thank you for your time in organising this session. So it's great to see so many people on the call again today, and we appreciate you giving up your time to be with us. So these sessions are really important for us in working together and to improve our relationship. So the first session, which we held back in June, focused on the various roles and responsibilities of officers in the Highways Group, with a specific focus on the role of the Neighbourhood Highways Officer. So we also discussed the most effective and efficient way to contact the Highways Group to enable you to get the best service and response from ourselves. So if you're unable to attend the last event, I would encourage you to watch the recording, which is available through DALC. So as described by Cara, today's event is on DIY highways, and the aim is to give you a valuable information on how we can work together for the benefit of our communities. So at this point, Cara, can I ask you to put the first slide up? Okay, so I'll just ask my colleagues with me to introduce myself, starting with Rob.
Afternoon, everyone. Rob Richards, I'm Deputy Director for Highways and Infrastructure Development. So I pick up Highways and Traffic Management Service. We've also got an in-house design consultancy that's got about 100 people that delivers designs and delivers new capital schemes and looks after our bridges and retaining walls. And then I also cover the highway development management, so that's issues related to planning applications.
Thank you. Tom?
Good afternoon, I'm Tom Vaughan, the Neighbourhood Highways Manager for the eastern side of the county, covering North Devon, East Devon, Exeter and Exmouth. For those of you who attended the last meeting, we discussed the role of the Neighbourhood Highways Officer, and they fall within my team covering that side of the county. So I'm sure we'll have plenty of contact over the year with each of the parish councils attending today.
Okay, John.
Hi, my name is John Fewings. I do a very similar job to Tom. I cover the Teignbridge, South Hams, Torridge and West Devon area. So I've got 3 teams based in Iverbridge, Oakhampton and Teignbridge. Thanks.
Okay, John B.
Good afternoon. I'm John Boyd in the Public Rights of Way team. I work all over Devon alongside the wardens, the area wardens who oversee rights of way work across Devon.
Hey, Caroline.
Hello, I'm Caroline Van Hughes and I'm the Highway Services Team Manager. So the team that I'm working in covers a whole range of different areas, including licensing and tree safety. However, today I'm here to talk about the administration of the different community self-help schemes.
Okay, thank you. So, Cara, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, just to give you an idea of what we'll be discussing today, so the contents, we'll be looking at the Road Warden Scheme, which John will explain to you. Caroline's then going to pick up the Highway Maintenance Community Enhancement Fund. Tom will talk you through the Snow Warden Scheme. I will then speak to you a bit more about the self-funded schemes. John from Public Rights of Way will talk you through the Parish Pass Partnership. And then we'll look for a breakout session and then questions as well. Okay, so I'll pass over to yourself now, Cara, for the polls.
Thanks, Ian. As we did last time, it's really useful to try and gauge what our membership knows about these various initiatives before we begin. So I'm just going to launch a quick poll that's just asking you at this moment, of the 4 schemes that we've only just hardly mentioned, which ones are you aware of? Not engaged with, but just aware of. What's really encouraging, can everyone see that? But what's really encouraging is that we can see the majority of participants here today are aware of the Road Warden Scheme. They are aware of the Snow Warden Scheme, and a lot of people are aware of the Parish Pass Partnership, but not so much awareness of the self-funded delivery scheme. So that's really, really good because we're able to share a lot more details about that today. I'm now going to launch another poll, and this is again just to help us gauge who we've got in the room. And this is around what schemes are you currently engaged with in your council? So again, it's the same categories as before. So whilst there's a high degree of awareness of the Road Warden Scheme, we can see that actually those here today, not many of you are engaged with it yet. So that's wonderful. So hopefully we'll be able to answer lots of your questions and give you a lot more information on that scheme today. And similarly goes for the Snow Wardens and Parish Pass Partnership. So it was sort of about half of you are engaged with it, half of you are not. So hopefully we can help encourage a few more of you to consider those in your communities later on. Okay, so that's all the polls from me. I'm going to hand back over to you, Ian.
Okay, John.
Thanks both. So I'm just going to quickly run you through the Road Warden Scheme that Devon County Council operates and promotes, and talk about why we set it up, what it does, and how you can participate. So I just want to start out by saying none of the schemes we're going to show you today are compulsory. They're all open to volunteers. The County Council will continue to manage and maintain our network, but all the programs that we're discussing today are people who want to do work that we don't normally cover. And I also want to say that you can choose what work you do. There is no pressure in any of these to do particular types of work. So on the screen at the moment, got a little bit about what is the Road Warden Scheme. So Devon was the first local authority in the country to set up a scheme like this. It's a formal agreement between the County Council, a town or parish council, and it allows communities to organise and undertake works on or away from the live carriageway. If you want to find out a little bit more, there's a QR code there on the slide that can take you to more information. So, Cara, could you put the next slide on, please? Thank you. So, why do we run a Road Warden Scheme? Well, the main reason that we set up the scheme originally was because people asked us if they could do works on the highway. We currently have 114 parishes signed up to the Road Warden Scheme, with 15 of those starting in 2024. That's over a quarter of the town and parish councils in Devon. And it's worth noting that Devon has the largest highway network of any local authority in the UK. It looks after over 8,000 miles of road. And that's more roads than they have in the whole of Belgium. We operate in a largely rural area, which brings additional challenges, such as distances at which we operate and the construction of some of our rural infrastructure. For example, our Western team covers the whole of Torridge District and West Devon Borough Council areas. And that stretches from Plymouth City Council boundary all the way up to Heartland and Bideford. And we also have funding challenges and pressures, and that's a national issue which many local authorities are facing. Cara, could you change the slide for me, please? So this slide is about what type of work the road wardens can do. So road wardens can undertake pothole repairs when they don't meet our intervention criteria. So that intervention criteria is available on our website that shows the potholes that we deal with on a regular basis. And we're able to provide the materials and the tools to enable road wardens to carry out those tasks. Cleaning weeds is also a common task that road wardens do, particularly along footways. Cleaning signs where it's safe to do so. Cleaning drainage features is another common work, such as gully gratings. It should be noted that many of the features, such as drainage ditches, are commonly the responsibility of individual landowners. Cutting grass is another aspect. We only cut grass that's a safety issue, such as visibility splays and inside of bends. And also repairing finger posts is another thing that road wardens can do. Cutting hedges is another one, although it should be noted these are normally a responsibility of the landowner adjacent to the highway. And more commonly, we're finding people want to manage verges for wildlife, and this could take the form of planting native species, removing invasive species, or adding features such as bee and bug hotels. So, Cara, could you go to the next slide, please? Sorry, and the next slide again. Right, okay, so what are the duties of a road warden? So the main formal duties of the road warden are as follows. They're normally nominated to be a suitable person by the town and parish council. It's normally the town and parish council that would put the original application into us. It's commonly, but doesn't necessarily have to be, the clerk who would fulfill the road warden role and provide the main point of contact and administration for the road warden role. It should be noted the road warden doesn't necessarily need to be part of the team that does the actual work. So the road warden could be a coordination role and look after the team that actually goes out and does the work on the highway. The road warden is the main communication link between the county council and the parish council. Please note that we're setting up a database of road warden contact details, similar to the one we currently have for our snow wardens, to improve communication between us. The road warden also agrees to work with the arrangements set forward by the formal road warden agreement, and this is important to fulfill the requirement for insurance cover, which I'll go over in the next slide. The road warden coordinates any minor works which are undertaken within the parish or town in which they operate. And they also ensure that the risk assessments are undertaken and are easily accessible when asked for by the county council. So Cara, if you could just put the next slide on for me. So this is one we commonly get asked about. It's about insurance cover. So one of the main reasons for joining the scheme is that you can get advice and support on how to work safely, but we also do provide some insurance cover. So in the unlikely event of a claim, the County Council will cover the public liability aspect of insurance for any voluntary work on the highway or footway, providing it's undertaken in a safe manner according to the County Council's advice. So for example, this would cover any injury or damage claims by a third party arising from any works that are done. The County Council would defend any claims if the works are done in accordance with the County Council's formal advice and training. Unfortunately, the County Council is not able to provide any other form of insurance cover for road warning activities, which must be taken at the volunteer's own risk. So, for example, any damage to an individual's person, property or vehicle would not be covered. Any vehicles that to be used, such as agricultural vehicles, then users must ensure that the vehicle is suitably insured for any activity undertaken, and if in doubt, they should contact their vehicle's insurer. Similarly, local council, if the local council decides to employ a contractor to undertake any works for them, then the County Council's public liability scheme will not apply. And this is because it only applies to volunteers, and it's normal that contractors would have their own insurance. So, Cara, that's great. Thanks. Applications. I think we've missed a slide. Is this, okay. There should be a slide in there about how to take part, but I'll ensure that Cara has this information in the notes. So if your parish is interested in joining the Road Warden Scheme, we've got the inquiries relating to training or funding. You can use the email address on our website, and that email address is communityselfhelp@devon.gov.uk. But again, I'll make sure that you have that with the pack you get information on after this. You can also discuss self-help schemes with your local neighbourhood highway officer, and we're working on improvements to our website at the moment, so we welcome any feedback on that. So that concludes my quick run through about the Road Warden Scheme. I think now we're going to Caroline to talk about the Highway Maintenance Community Enhancement Fund. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It looks like the 3 slides that form my rather short contribution to this are in a little bit of a haphazard order at the moment, but hopefully you'll all be able to follow along what I'm trying to say. So I'd like to talk to you all about the Highway Maintenance Community Enhancement Fund. And don't worry, you won't need to remember the name of that. There's plenty of information on our website. The fund is designed to support parishes financially who are engaged in our various different self-help schemes, and it focuses on enabling people to purchase the tools, the materials, the PPE and so on that you need to carry out your works. We also have a separate budget available for training, so this is focusing primarily, as I say, on the tools and equipment. We know that it can be difficult when you're starting out in the scheme to understand what exactly you're going to need. So we always ask people to make sure that they've had a conversation with their local neighbourhood highway officer first to establish what works they'd like to do and what might be involved in that. So what PPE they might need for particular jobs or what tools or equipment. We're also looking at providing some standard lists to make things easier in the ordering process. And I'm hoping that you might be able to move on to the next slide. No, I think we might have to go back, I'm afraid. I do apologise, everybody. So I will talk about this slide as we're now up here. So
Caroline, I've only got one slide for you.
The other one on applications was also mine, but
okay,
but not to worry. Yes, so I'm sure if you're hearing about this for the first time, your first thought might be, how do I apply for this fund? So all applications need to be made online, and when you find the information on the Highway Maintenance Community Enhancement Fund, there are 2 different forms. So one focuses on pothole repair and the other on other types of request. So if you make a request relating to pothole repair, So that could be for the cold lay tarmac or the equipment that you need to use that cold lay tarmac. Then those requests are prioritised and they don't go through the same formal approval process that we do for other types of applications. You do, however, need to meet certain criteria, and I feel that's worth highlighting here. So if you're interested in repairing potholes in your community, we do ask that everybody who does that has signed up to the Road Warden Agreement and has undertaken appropriate signing, lighting and guarding training to keep you safe on the highway. If you're applying for other types of work that you're intending to do, then those applications are considered by our Road Warden Board. So depending on the time you apply, you could have a wait of perhaps up to 3 months for those to be considered. When you do apply, I would say that currently about 80% of bids are successful. So assuming that your bid is successful, we do pay before you've completed the works, which hopefully you all would find very helpful. The flip side of that is that we do need to request some audit paperwork following the issue of the money to make sure that we're keeping track of how it's all being spent. And we also ask for case studies to be provided, which not only form part of audit paperwork, but they help us understand what everybody's doing, and they are an excellent resource to share with other communities. I know here present today there are quite a few very active communities, and their case studies we can signpost people towards if you're interested in doing things in your own area. And I think my final slide was some before and after photos, which we find particularly helpful because they really help showcase the difference that the volunteers are able to make in their communities. So we're looking at publishing as many of these as we can on our website because they give you such a good feel for all of the excellent work that the volunteers are doing. And while I'm mentioning our website, I think it's also helpful to mention here that we're reviewing some of our web pages to bring everything into more of a one-stop shop for you. At the moment, our application forms are on slightly different parts of our site, but we're hoping to bring all of this community-based work into one area. So you can bookmark that and you won't have to go looking for anything. But we do welcome your feedback on any of that. And I apologise for the slightly haphazard nature of the presentation, but that's it from me, thank you.
Good afternoon. Whilst I'm about to speak about the Snow Warden, I thought it might be helpful to pick up on one of the comments in the chat section earlier. The request regarding whether parish and town councils can help us to make communities aware of their responsibilities in terms of drainage and hedge cutting. And I'm a great believer, I think that's one of the most positive impacts you can actually have on your communities. You're aware of the impact that overgrown hedges and drainage features have on the people in your residents, and you're able to explain that to them. I often refer to the fact that it's, in our case, it's often a person in a yellow jacket from County Hall maybe, who's come from away, who doesn't necessarily understand the local community, where you're able to have those polite conversations and understand who those landowners are. That could be a massive benefit to us. So absolutely, any support we can help you to get that message out to your communities, please do let us know. So in terms of the Snow Warden Scheme, I appreciate it does seem somewhat negative in the height of summer to be discussing extreme winter weather, but actually this is also the time of year when our frontline officers are undertaking their training for winter, and we're preparing vehicles and supplies ready for the winter season. So we absolutely recognise that during times of extreme weather, we need to have a robust policy in terms of where we can treat and where we're not able to, due to the available resource we have, to make sure our strategic network is kept free and available to use. So for the local communities, they perhaps don't receive the attention and support they would wish at that time. However, using the Snow Warden Scheme, we're able to provide training, advice and SALT to community groups and parish councils who can help us and help each other on a voluntary basis. It's often the case that during extreme weather, communications between communities and between ourselves, our contractors and our service providers and our suppliers and support staff really does escalate and does actually peak in terms of its efficiency and effectiveness. And to do that, the Snow Warden is a key point of contact for us between ourselves and the local community. And primarily, that role of the Snow Warden is to be that coordination role. So we'll make sure that you get that support from ourselves through our local neighbourhood highways officers and hopefully through your parish councils. So in terms of what the Snow Warden actually does, it's working on behalf of the parish council, so not Devon County Council, it's working on behalf of the parish council to provide that support locally. And they deliver winter maintenance support, which is determined by the parish or town council. So it's voluntary and it's the level that you wish and are able to deliver to your community. So in doing that, that would include the ordering of grit supplies. As Devon County Council, we will commit to supplying 5 tons of salt on an annual basis to those who are part of the Road Warden Scheme. And we currently have 325 parish and town councils who are part of that scheme, which is fantastic. The role would include keeping a register of locally trained volunteers, receiving and responding to locally to weather alerts. So we will provide that information when we can and when we receive it at the earliest opportunity to allow local communities to actually make a decision on what action they wish to take locally. Organising and deploying volunteers to clear the snow and understanding where you want those sites to be prioritised, how you want that to be delivered. And again, that will vary between communities on the resource you have available, the volunteers you have available. Organising and deploying those volunteers to spread the salt and the grit when ice conditions are forecast. So through using the information we'll be providing to understand when it's best to actually undertake that action, and encouraging the responsible use of grit and salt to help minimise abuse of salt and grit salt within communities. So that's really important because very few people realise how little salt you actually need to provide an effective protection of your network. So by actually getting that message out to communities and to your volunteers, you can really help us to make sure that we're getting most efficient use out of the resource we and you have available to us. The Snow Warden volunteers, we absolutely recognise that everybody has a different amount of commitment they're able to give to any voluntary project. So the volunteers would be more of a hands-on support to spread that grit, to clear the snow. They may be local farmers who have larger equipment available who may be able to supply that, or they might be someone who's prepared to pick up a shovel and come out and help where the local grit bins are and work around those areas. And refill the grit bins and bags. And importantly, and one of the key things we do with our volunteers is the reporting of issues, particularly in this case with the grit bins and the bags, to ourselves, so we're able to provide support and explain what the next best process is for yourself. As I mentioned earlier, as an authority, we'll pledge to provide 5 tons of salt to each parish that signs up to the scheme, and we will then provide salt through our supplier based on approximately £100 per tonne put to each community if they wish to do so. To be honest, the 5 tons normally goes far enough, and it's very rare that we actually have too many calls to provide extra, particularly in addition to the grit bin supplies that you already have in the communities. We'll provide advice on how to store that salt, and I think the key is the level of the scheme is dependent on what you want to get involved in and how much time and support you're able to give as volunteers. And there's information on site on how to get involved. We'll provide online training, which was updated last year with videos and various other issues to help you, particularly understanding what to do, when to do it, and how much material is required to actually get a good and effective service from yourselves. But if you want to get involved in the scheme, please do contact your local neighbourhood highways officer. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so it's been widely acknowledged that towns and parishes are keen to see minor changes to the highway network that do not form part of Devon County Council's priorities. So quite often communities have funding in place for these changes, for example, from planning gains monies. However, Devon County Council does not have the capacity to design or deliver these proposals at the time. So what the scheme provides is the assistance for communities to progress improvements themselves. So full details are available in our committee report, which you can gain access to from the QR code shown on the right-hand corner of the slide, but we will make these available at the end of the presentation as well. So the kind of improvements that I'm talking about include, but are not limited to, providing drop crossings, footways, speed limit changes, traffic calming features or pedestrian crossings, and public realm improvements. So the Highways Group ourselves, with the support of the engineering design group that comes under Rob, have co-authored a guide for communities that lays out the typical steps that need consideration when delivering these schemes. So these steps include yourself employing a competent designer, which can take you through the process, the kind of environmental considerations that you need to think about, such as biodiversity and heritage of your communities, the road safety audits and maintenance audits, the consultation that you'll need to do with the affected parties as part of any scheme that you're putting in, and also the traffic regulation orders. So we can have the next slide, please. Thank you. So a competent designer or consultant will guide yourselves through the self-delivery process. However, my teams will make time available to support and offer direction to you through a series of gateway reviews. So these gateway reviews would include the project initiation. So that's a really early discussion to agree what kind of proposals you're talking about and the scopes of those changes. The next gateway would be the feasibility design, when you progress that a little bit further ahead of the initial design. We'll then have another meeting when we get to the detailed decide side. So once all the approvals are in place and prior to awarding a contract and actually carrying out the works on site. So again, meeting with your pre-construction, meeting with your contractor and the community, and then also another meeting at the post-construction stage, just to review what's completed before we then take the works back over from yourselves. So myself and Tom have been directly involved with one community recently looking to implement an improvement, and I'm aware of others across the county. So this initiative is in its early stages, and we will make case studies available when some of these schemes come to fruition. I think one of the key messages from this initiative is this is not designed for Devon County Council to back away from any of our responsibilities at all. This is an enabling initiative where communities have funding for improvements that would not be delivered normally by Devon County Council, as these are not considered priorities for ourselves at the present time. However, we will provide the guidance and the support to the communities to enable them to progress these schemes. Okay, next slide, please, Cara, and I'll pass on to John. Thank you.
I don't appear to have any other slides for you, Ian.
No, that's it. Next slide, this to pass on to John now. So
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
Hello, this is a very brief update on P3, which is our parish pass partnership scheme. I think we've got quite a few of you here today who have some sort of awareness of it, which is partly because it's been around for quite a long time. I think we're over 20 years now of doing the scheme, and currently have about 120 parishes undertaking works, which is really good. And the importance of the scheme really is the versatility aspect. It's really trying to promote people from the parishes having an input and having a say in what's done within the paths, which I think is really important. There are two different grants which we offer for the scheme. One of them is a maintenance grant and the other is an improvement grant. This is done based on the length of footpaths within the parish, but also supplementary money is provided based on what works need to be done on the ground. And this is calculated every year when the volunteers undertake surveys to identify anything that fails criteria provided by Devon County Council. So this is exactly the same as what our wardens would use, and then we can work on that failed criteria to figure out a way of improving the site. So how the parishes implement the works varies from parish to parish. Some parishes can only do the surveys, which is completely fine. And if this is the case, then all the works that need to be done get handed back to Devon County Council wardens, who will then allocate contractors to repair anything that fails the criteria. A level up from this is where we've got coordinators within the parish. So these are volunteers who have a more active role in working with contractors, working with ourselves, identifying the costings of works that need to be done. And it's a far more efficient way of using our time, because a lot of the time the parish volunteers have a much better knowledge of the area, they have a much better knowledge of the landowners, and it can be a really efficient way of getting work done very quickly. And then a level up from this again is that we've got a lot of parishes who've got volunteer groups and working parties, and this works really well in identifying items where they want, if you've got good use of hand tools, if you've got experience with brush cutting, people go out and they do works on the site, and they provide us with a list of materials that they require and money required to do the works. And then if we deem it a good use of money, I will then provide them with money and support to do the works themselves. So an example of this is the brush cutting picture on the top. These are a group of volunteers who have used their maintenance grant to get trained up in brush cutting, and then they use the grant also to purchase brush cutters and safety tools, and then undertaking a supplementary brush cutting day or days on top of what the Devon County Council already provide. This is really useful in areas that have high footfall, and particularly at the moment where paths grow much quicker, it can be a really useful way of just providing more access to the parish paths, which potentially couldn't be done anyway. An alternative to this could be using that maintenance grant in order to get a contractor to do the work. This isn't as cost effective, so it's a lot more sort of spot treatment where you've got, again, high footfall areas, using those contractors to target those areas which are being used all the time. The second grant we offer is the improvement grant. So this is used for projects that don't fail the criteria, however, are really good at improving the paths within the parish. All the parishes are competing for the same pot of money for this, and so we have to be quite selective on what we choose, choosing things that are both cost efficient and financially appropriate on site for the area. So an example of this is the bottom photo, which is, I think that's from Modbury a few years ago, where it doesn't fail the criteria. There was muddy footpaths, however, it wasn't enough to repair it through the maintenance grant. However, the parish put some bids forward to ask for resources to do the work themselves, and because it was very financially cost effective, because they were doing a lot of the work themselves, I could provide them, or my predecessor could provide them with the materials, and they could undertake the work, etc., to improve the area. This is really good because it provides an area which is much more accessible to people, where it might not have been done for many years otherwise. An alternative to this could be if you're trying to convert stiles into gates to make it more accessible to people with mobility issues, or who've got disability problems. And I think this is a really good opportunity to use this improvement grant to provide more access to nature. So yeah, I think it's important to sort of express how much we value the work of the volunteers on the site, and it's quite it's a vital bit of role within the parishes, and I think it's important to provide access to local areas. And even if you can't get enough volunteers to be part of the scheme, by reporting these incidents, it's really important to fix them. So through the website, we can report any problems and get them repaired. Thank you.
Okay, so John.
Yeah, sorry, I just lost my mute button there. Sorry about that. So just want to quickly talk about social value. And just really a reminder that you don't have to be part of a formal scheme to do local work. So this is just a picture of a recent litter picking trip that I did. Or I just went out with my partner and we picked up quite a lot of rubbish in our local area. It was separated out into what we could recycle and what we couldn't. Also, people are able to just clean weeds outside and around their sort of own house. So regularly when we tidy up our garden, we go and pull up weeds out of the wall alongside our house. And people quite often cut the grass verges outside their house, so they're cutting their own lawn. They quite often just go out and cut a bit of verge that's near their house as well. But to do is just need to make sure that you're safe, and because it's not being sponsored by a local authority, that just be aware that any work you do is at your own risk. And it's also worth mentioning that a lot of companies have social value policies and may be looking to help. So they may be willing to help out with community events by supplying manpower or materials, or even sometimes some funding. Particularly if they're based in or working in your local town or parish. And for example, Milestone, our own contractor, recently did some work on clearing out an access route to Poltimore House. So that's really just a little quick short run through on sort of social value, and the fact, just a reminder that you can actually just do work without joining any of our formal schemes. Thank you.
I believe that concludes the initial presentation part of our session now. And I can already see that lots of questions have already started filing through on our chat, and the team have already been responding to lots of them. But I really just want to open up for a few minutes now that if you've heard anything or would like to ask any further questions on any of the schemes we've had today, this is your opportunity to do so before we go out into breakout rooms. Now, starting from some of the things that I've seen in the chat, there's been references to training for road wardens. And I'm not sure we covered that in the slides. So would anybody from the team just be able to share about what the training requirements are for anyone engaging in the Road Warden scheme? And how long that training lasts?
Would you like me to cover that one?
Yeah,
Yep.
Thanks, Caroline.
So we ask everybody to undertake a short online course called Highway Safety Awareness, which can be done at 1 o'clock in the morning if you'd like to. It's a very short course, but it just gives you an introduction to the sort of hazards that we want people to be aware of, because our primary focus with all of our training is keeping you safe when you're out volunteering on the highway. If you will be doing any more works, especially on the live carriageway, we ask that people do a qualification called signing, lighting and guarding. And that's a module of a chapter 8 qualification, if that means anything to anybody. But the premise of that is at the end of the training, you'll be able to set up a safe work site. And we don't ask that everybody who's going to be working does that training. We have said that if somebody's setting up the training, 2 untrained volunteers can work within their work site, but the person who is trained has to set up the work site. If people are looking to use bladed power tools, for example, then additional qualifications would be required, because again, that is needed to comply with the safety aspects and also to make sure that any insurance is valid. But those are the Highway Safety Awareness course and the signing, lighting and guarding are the main training that we have. The signing, lighting and guarding, at the moment we're using external suppliers for. So that would mean attending a training organisation at some convenient location in Devon for you. And typically that's 1 or 2 days training, depending on the most convenient location for you. And if you do have any more inquiries about that, I've popped our email address in the chat several times, but for the benefit of anybody who's not seen it, it's communityselfhelp@devon.gov.uk, which is hopefully quite easy to remember.
Thanks, Caroline. And I saw in the chat that you said that the qualifications last for 5 years. So if
Yeah,
after the 5
signing, lighting and guarding does.
Yeah. So with that one, after the 5 years, would somebody be expected to do the whole course again, or is there a refresher light touch version?
Some training providers do offer a light touch version, but it does depend on the training provider. We find that different parishes have different comfort levels around how far they're prepared to travel. So it might be that you have to make a compromise that if you want to go to a nearer training provider, you have to do a longer course.
Okay. And how often is training opportunities available? Is this like maybe there'll be a couple occasions a year, or is it always available?
You can always access the training provision, but it is subject to when the training providers themselves are able to put the courses on. But we generally find these days, post-COVID, that there's good availability throughout the year.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Someone's sent me a direct question about, is it true that the Road Warden scheme does not extend to A roads? So I suppose, is there any kind of roads where the Road Warden scheme will not apply? John, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, unfortunately, high-speed roads are not suitable for work for the Road Warden scheme. but we cover all that in the basic training that we offer about which roads you can and can't work on.
Okay, so it might be that those in towns maybe might find engaging with the Road Warden Scheme a little bit more challenging, perhaps, or parts of their towns they might not be able to.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
possibly. Okay. We've had some exchanges around the funding, Caroline, and it seems to be I don't know, maybe some mixed message or some clarity that you can provide about how accessing funding, whether it's for volunteers or whether they're using contractors. Are there certain circumstances when using contractors that the highway, the funding is not available?
I think Tom looks like he's about to pick that one up for me.
Okay.
I'm happy to. We have a very limited amount of funding for this type of work, and what we're looking to do is to engage community support with that work. What we're reluctant to do is pay for subcontractors generally to undertake works that we could perhaps undertake at a lower rate, but unfortunately resources don't allow us to do so. So to provide the fund, it's the logic behind making sure that we're getting the maximum amount of action for the funding we're making available. There are an awful lot of communities providing an awful lot of support to us who are benefiting from the provision of tools, provision of training, provision of support. And that's where we feel that it's best used rather than to make sure that we're actually getting maximum value for that money. So we're not saying no, but what we're looking to do is actually ensure that we're actually getting full value for doing that.
Thank you, Tom.
Should I just come in and just to support what Tom's saying there? I think, as he said, you know, a huge number of communities have got a huge number of volunteers that are all doing work that I think we would like to be doing ourselves, if we're honest. But the reality of where we find ourselves is the fact I often quote to people was in the last 10 years, our revenue budget, which would pay for this type of work, in real terms, it has halved. And unfortunately, that's left us with some really difficult decisions to make, and things that we're quite uncomfortable with ourselves. However, we've got to make those difficult decisions. And I think that's even harder when you know that you have communities, a lot of volunteers are putting a lot of work in. Just picking up on the message from Exmouth, apologies, I missed, was it Chetna? I think, yeah, you know, I think as we said at the start of this is not about us trying to relieve ourselves of our duties and our responsibilities, but there's areas that maybe we would like to do, but we just do not have the resources to do, but that just won't get done. So it's probably that side of it, rather than trying to offload or pass responsibilities onto parish or town councils. But that's maybe something we could take offline if there's specific issues there.
Yeah, and I think there's other comments sort of similarly linked to this and what we've heard in the past as well. It's how do we ensure that there isn't any duplication of efforts and stuff that what the parish council might do with a road warden and what might happen as part of your routine works with your own various contracts and stuff. How can we ensure they are working, you know, complementing each other and not conflicting and getting in each other's way?
I think that's a really valid point, and that's something we're working very hard on at the moment to actually make sure we can get programs as clear as possible when we're aware of the full level of detail ourselves to communities, to make sure that, particularly if they're doing work on those drainage assets, that we're not duplicating that work, to make sure again that we get maximum value both out of our resource and the support's being given us by the communities. So there are improvements I'm aware of that should be becoming available during the next year as we develop them and improve them, and we'll be working very closely with yourself to make sure actually that's what the members want, not what we think they want.
Yep. Yeah, and we've already had to have one focus group already where we've started exploring about what parishes' needs are in terms of information, haven't we? So we're at the start of a journey. We're very confident we're going to get some good outcomes at the end of it. But the primary route now, I suppose, for anyone trying to liaise and coordinate is really working through the neighbourhood highways officer, isn't it? That's the primary route at the moment. Was somebody trying to jump in there? Was that you, John?
Yeah, sorry, Carl. I was going to say, I think you challenged us one of the last meetings about we were saying we're reluctant to pass some of the information out because we can't be absolutely sure it's perfect. And you were saying, well, actually, it's better to get out the information you've got. And so, yeah, because our programs change throughout the year. So it's very difficult for us to predict too far ahead of what we're going to be doing. and we've got so many different programs as well, like our grass cutting program, patching, resurfacing programs, all those. But yeah, if we get the information out that we've got available and then say, look, this might change, that might be a better way forward.
So yeah, you say evidence that we are starting to have these conversations and looking for the opportunities for improvements. So I'm going to jump to a couple of parish pass sort of questions now. So there was a question about those in the Dartmoor National Park area. Are they able to access the grants as anybody else can?
It's a good question, as we do have some wardens who overlap with Dartmoor National Park Authority. Generally, no, that's covered by DNPA. However, I will take the question away with me just to double check, because obviously there are ones where there's a bit of a hazy ground between Devon County Council and Dartmoor National Park Authority. So I'll take it away.
Yeah, hopefully we can get some good joint working, and hopefully everyone being able to access similar opportunities. There was another one there as sort of thing. There's been a couple of comments about communications with the team around Parish Pass recently, and I realised there has been a change in personnel. Is there a backlog that you're working through, or anything like that that we need to be aware of?
Short answer, yes. Yeah, it's been, there was a big gap of about 6 to 8 months when we didn't have anyone in post, so it's been a bit chaotic to say the least this year. I think it's going to be a bit, well, everything has been much slower this year, both communications and payments. However, most basic payments have been issued now or are in the process of being issued. When it comes to improvement work, we've had to sort of rein back a little bit this year, not because of funding, but because of priorities. They're just trying to make sure that we can prioritise the basic payments. I'm hoping next year, or for the run up to the next financial year, we'll be able to have much better both communication and ability to bring in more people and hopefully improve it to make it easier for members who are already in the role already in the scheme.
Okay, thanks, John. For those that might have grant applications in at the current time that might not have had a response yet, could you give any kind of indication, I suppose, when they may be able to hear back? I know you put you on the spot here, but anything that can help manage expectations.
Absolutely. So we've generally, with the basic grants, we should be, if you haven't already heard back, you'll be hearing back within the next week or two. We've got, I'd say 90% of payments through to people. When it comes to the improvement grants, it's going to be over the next 6 weeks or so whilst we do site visits and just trying to deem the challenges, trying to deem sort of the cost benefit to it. Some of these are very expensive, and trying to get the contractors out can be harder. But if we can't get them out this year, we can generally get them out next year. And just to reiterate, if you think they're a concern to health, if there's something that's going to be deemed unsafe, please get in touch again, and we'll make sure that we can get these assessed, because that's the priority.
Okay, Cara, just to back up what John said there, we have had quite a few vacancies across the whole of the public rights of way team over the past 6 to 12 months or so. We're in the process of recruiting to those, John being one of those, joining us 3 months ago. So it's just to set expectations on there that we know there has been delays in different areas, but we are getting ourselves back up to speed with staff now. Okay, thanks.
I'm going to jump to the self-delivery scheme now, because there was a question from Totnes Town Council, and it's quite a long one. I might not be able to answer all of these for you, Catherine, now, and we'll definitely get a full response to you afterwards. But the first bit was around, are there approved design consultants, I suppose, available for those councils that might be considering one of the self-funded scheme options?
Okay, so we did. Sorry, go on, Rob, you're gonna.
Well, I was just going to come in and say, when we put the cabinet report together, we didn't actually put together a list, or there is a group called this, I think, Association of Consulting Engineers, that are a kind of registered trade association that we were going to point people to. Equally, we do have our own private sector partner in WSP, who are a multinational consultant that we could direct you to, but they act as a top-up consultant to EDG. So I think the idea is we could try to help you find someone that's appropriate for the type of work and the scale of work that you're looking to deliver.
And along this sort of theme as well, obviously we recognise any council would have to incur the costs and stuff that might be associated with employing these designers and these engineers. So they may be concerned that they may get partway down a journey and then perhaps get a response of, no, we're not going ahead with this. How do we ensure this all links up so no one's going down a path and incurring costs unnecessarily?
Okay, so part of the initiative is having these gateway reviews. So the one which myself and Tom have been involved with, we've chatted to the town council initially, and they've said this is the idea that we've got. This one, for instance, was a crossing on there. This is the idea we've got, and we've had discussions to say whether it's going to be feasible at that early stage. And then that's why the gateway reviews are in place, is to make sure that nobody goes down the wrong route early on and incurs a lot of costs. So we give as much advice as we can, as if we were delivering the scheme ourselves.
So hopefully that offers some assurance that councils aren't going to incur too much expense and go down a path and then suddenly have the doors blocked in their face. But something that anyone considering this needs to be talking early with you, don't they, and talking about all these different steps. Yeah,
absolutely. And that initial discussion, first of all, will be no cost apart from just the time of the officers.
Yeah. Okay, I can see we've still got lots more questions coming in the chat, but I really do want to pause just for a moment so we can go into our breakout sessions. And anything that if you don't get any of your questions answered in the breakout sessions, we do have the feedback form that will be circulated at the end, which enables you to capture any comments and questions that you have so we can take them away and get responses back to you as well. But for now, we're going to go into breakout rooms. What I'm going to be doing is you're going to see 4 breakout room options presented to you on the screen. So this is one for each of the 4 different areas. I would like you to pick whichever is your preferred, and it might be preferred because you're interested in starting it or interested in giving feedback on it. We're interested in hearing all comments and views and feedback and hearing questions today. So you'll see it pop onto your screen in a moment. Select which one you want to go into, and then we're going to give you sort of 15 minutes or so just to chat through, get more information, get a feel for, what are the barriers to engaging in these schemes, what are the challenges you're dealing with in those schemes, what questions you might have, or how these schemes could potentially be improved in the future. We're really interested in hearing all of it. So I'm going to open up those break rooms now. Welcome back, everyone. I know 15 minutes is never long enough when we want to be chatting about these things, but hopefully it's given you an opportunity to ask some further questions and get a little bit more information. And as I said before, we do have the feedback form now that I really want each of you to please just take a couple of minutes after this session to fill that in, because it gives you an opportunity to add any further questions, any further comments, any further feedback following what you've discussed in your breakout rooms. And it really just helps us to bring all that information together so we can learn from your experiences and think about what our next steps are going to be. I'm going to put the link in the chat now, but I will share it again later on in the session. What I'm going to do now is just quickly invite each of our facilitators to maybe just share some highlights that might have come out, or some key takeaways that might have come out of your sessions. And I'm going to pick on John and Caroline first from the Road Warden Scheme. Was there anything that of interest that was emerging from your group?
Yeah, so we were talking about Road Warden Scheme, and it's apparent that at least one parish council is paying for the road repair material, and we provide that for free. So just to stress, we can provide that. No one should be paying for that material. Also, if you want to check, there were some parishes, I think, who weren't sure whether they were part of the scheme currently or not. So if you want to email communityselfhelp@devon.gov.uk, we can let you know if you are already part of the scheme. I think we had one who had started the sign-up process but never formally joined. The issue of green waste has been a long-term problem in the past. We're now able to supply some green waste tickets. So I think one of the parishes said that they had a lot of green waste. They try to compost as much as they can, which we really appreciate them doing. But yeah, if you find there's green waste that you need to get rid of, we can now give you green waste tickets. They enable you to go to the tip, and then they'll be able to take the green waste off of you. And the contractor costs, someone raised, still on our website. We have said we will consider contractor costs, and in the past I think we offered 50% and then we reduced it. But at the moment, we're prioritising tools, equipment, and personal protective equipment. I don't think we're going to have much funding left after funding all that to pay for any contractor costs. So I'm afraid, looking at the moment, like we won't be able to do that. Thank you very much.
Sounds like some really helpful clarifications were emerging in there, particularly if there's some cost savings. Something's just popped into the chat about does any of the funding cover road signs at all, or is that something that a council would have to incur that expenditure separately?
Yeah, so if you're looking for road signing enable you to do your work safely, then yeah, that's something we can look at.
But what about actually roads? If you wanted to put like a speed sign up or anything like that, is anything like that?
Speed limits. I think someone put in the chat earlier about SCARF process that we use. So SCARF is the Speed Compliance Action Review Forum. That's a forum, but with us, the police and road safety professionals, looking at speed limits. Speed limits are much more than just putting up a sign. There's a whole process you need to go through in terms of traffic regulation laws and everything to put a speed limit in place. But SCARF is the formal process of doing that.
Okay. So not quite so sure, but again, as always, talk to your neighbourhood highways officer, isn't it, about what you're looking to do and getting that guidance. Wonderful. Over to Tom next from the Snow Wardens group. What were your takeaways?
The key one was that snow wardens weren't particularly interesting in the middle of July, I think. So we weren't overwhelmed with attendees, but I think the key messages were around the concern of hidden costs of volunteering and those various conversations that happen around that. And I think the key message was that the scheme can be as big or as small as the community want it to be, and to make sure they're not concerned about going to speak to a neighbourhood highways officer to actually understand what's required in terms of the volunteering process, that there was concern around storage of the material. Well, actually, it's not compulsory to have the 5 tons of material of salt for spreading. There may be enough salt in the community already in the grit bins and the like around that could be used. So that's just an additional support that we'll provide if required, and if the area is there to actually store that material. So I think the key message is not to be concerned about those elements. We've updated our website to helpfully provide some support in terms of what training is required and how to simplify the process to make sure people can come on board if they want to. We've got 325 parishes already signed up who are successfully running this scheme. So for those who are not, hopefully that's an encouragement that they could come and join us. So I think the key message is have a look on our website. It's been updated and it's all nicely set out, and speak to the local neighbourhood highways officer who'll be able to provide support in terms of the training in addition to the online training that's available. And we can develop the scheme as they feel appropriate in their area.
Wonderful. And as I said earlier, we'll definitely be sharing all the links to all of these initiatives and all these helpful signposts and stuff as well after this event. So please don't worry about having to scribble down links or anything now. We will get links sent to you to help. Thanks, Tom. Ian and Rob, what emerged from your self-delivery or self-funded delivery scheme session?
Yeah, so a lot of our discussion initially was where you actually go to start these schemes, where those discussions start. So the message is clearly with your NHO to start that process off on there. There was a little bit of concern about the financial risk for towns and parishes if they start this process and how far they get and spend a lot of money with consultants. But there's the gateway reviews as part of that is where we look to try and limit that kind of cost as we move forward. So some interesting comments as well about how you prove that the community actually wants the scheme that you're looking at on there. And we've talked about the different kind of processes that we do. So holding sessions which showed maybe in your town hall, which show the kind of scheme you're going, gathering information from people, whether you use social media that you've got in a positive way, and there to promote the kind of scheme you've got, whether you talk about that as your town and parish meetings as well. We talked also about whether finance can be available from different sources. So consider whether district council want to get involved with you as well, if there's some kind of joint scheme which you'd look to push forward on there. Again, where you could find consultants which will make that available through the information that Rob gave earlier in the answer on there. And then also discussed about whether the communities can actually, you know, if you've got people who are willing to dig holes and they've got diggers themselves, whether you can carry out works yourself. So we've just talked about the fact that you need accredited contractors to that, because we're talking about the insurance side of that and the ability to work on the road. Okay.
I think you covered a lot in 15 minutes. Well done.
It did go very quickly. It went very quickly.
Yeah.
And finally,
okay, good discussion.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And I'm sure we can continue these discussions for much longer given the opportunity. So over to John next from the Parish Path Group.
Yeah, I think a big take home was a lot of these schemes require volunteers, and that can be quite hard to do, and they don't run without the need of the volunteers, which from the P3 scheme side of things, we are trying to improve the support we can give through leaflets and posters and the things we have on the website to make it easier for someone in the parish to want to try and rally the troops to try and get things done. But also, if you're finding that you can't get volunteers, you can still report the problem. So if you type in Devon report a problem into Google or into the Devon website, you'll see a really easy, really self-explanatory way of identifying if there's any issues that are of concern to you. And it's, yeah, even if you don't join the scheme, I think knowing that you can still report it and are still being heard is important.
That's really, really useful to know. And actually thinking of that, it's just brought up a question I think I saw earlier, and it's not necessarily linked to parish pass, it's kind of general about the report a problem thing. It's probably more applicable to road wardens. But when people are logging things there, but they may be parishes that are either linked in the road warden scheme or the parish pass partnership, how is that funneled to the right place? Or do you just by default as Devon County just take that on when it's reported with you?
I don't know if this is a question for someone else more than myself, but from the parish pass point of view, it goes to our wardens. So we've got like an overarching website, website that is used, a bit of software that identifies all of the whole list of problems, and then they've got a deadline to review and identify whether it's something that meets the criteria and needs to be fixed.
And Cara, anything that comes through our report a problem page is directed to that specific team that deal with that, and it goes to a mailbox which is monitored. And that's part of the discussion that we had at the previous event. Is that's the best way that you can get an effective answer back from Devon County Council.
Yeah. So parishes shouldn't be worrying about things going to you instead of to them. It's just you will deal with it if it comes your way. And I'm sure the neighbourhood highways officers will pick it up if it's something that needs to come your way, I guess. Okay,
yeah, so neighbourhood highway officers deal with anything they can straight away, but then they have to reach back to our specialist teams if it's another problem. So it's a roadwork problem, it might be a coordination team. If it's a speeding problem, it might be our traffic team. So yeah, anything that the NHO can deal with, they can, but they can also pass it on to other teams who deal with specialist issues.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so we're now into sort of the final couple of minutes in the session now. I want to do another quick poll, if I may, for those of you that are still with us, just to get a feel for what your future thoughts are around engaging with these schemes. So some of you have already indicated you're aware of them, some of you are already engaged, but now I just wanted to do another poll to get a sense for, no matter where you are in the process now, are you interested in continuing or starting with these schemes moving forward? So we can see we've still got a really high take up with the Road Warden scheme. The Snow Warden's up high. It looks like there's more interest in the self-funded delivery scheme now, and it looks like we've got a bit more interest in the parish pass partnership as well. So this is really, really encouraging. And again, I thank everyone for their continued sort of commitment and openness to working collaboratively with the highways team and exploring these initiatives for your community. And we'll continue to make sure that you get all the information you need to be able to take that interest further, should you wish to. So I'm just going to quickly hand over to Ian now, who's just going to make you aware of some of the opportunities coming up in the near future.
Thank you, Cara. So yes, as part of the events, what we're really keen to hear from yourselves is, what do you want to hear about? Are the topics which we've already discussed, are they key to you? Are they working? Are we getting everything we need from there? And then by the feedback that we get, we can then look at what the future events are going to be. So we've got 4 which are planned at the moment, and we've done them about a spacing of every other month at the moment. But we're keen to add to that. We're keen to look for other subjects which are coming up. So the next one in October is how our roads are maintained. So it'll be looking at what kind of treatments we do on there, surface dressing, how we're fixing potholes. The following month in December, understanding roadworks. We get lots and lots of questions about why is this road closed and there's works going on here, and how we actually process all those requests with the statutory utilities. As we move into February, we'll give you an insight as to how we choose to invest the money in the highway infrastructure and why we do that. And then the last one, which we've got planned currently, is highways in the planning system. So it will be another part of Rob's group who look at planning permissions that come in for houses and why we carry out road alterations in particular places to facilitate that. Okay. At this point, Cara, I just want to thank you for all the time and effort you've put into creating the session today, and also to everybody else who's spent the time to come along and chat to us today.
Thanks, Ian. I see lots more interest, more opportunities to come. And as I've reiterated numerous times over recent weeks and months, it's just that we are on a start of a journey for closer working relationships between parish and councils and Devon County Council. There's lots to be heard, lots to learn, lots of opportunities for improvement. And we're really looking forward to what things are going to look like in a year's time, which I think is going to look very different, I think, from what it looks like now. So thanks again, everyone, for your involvement. Please use the feedback form. I put the link in about 3 times in the chat now. Hopefully you've all seen it, but I will send an email round with the links as well as all the links to all the recording and the presentation and all the information that's been shared today. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll let you get on with your afternoon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Cara. Bye.